You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Welcome to another episode of our series talking about handmade, historical handmade, and how it changed up until today. We'll be talking about another handmade technique that you can meet in Poland. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to another episode about Polish handmade, how it used to be and how it is today. And today I've got a translation of an interview about kornet bamberski with Monika Warchalewska. So let's not waste time and I'll tell you a bit about that. So the person who's going to be telling us the story of kornet bamberski is Monika Warchalewska. She was introduced by Karolina from our Oplotki Association, and what she had to say is a bit of a story of this kornet bamberski. What exactly is that, actually? We could actually translate it into Bamber coif, I guess. It is a headgear the Bamber woman wore. So it's like a head cover that Bamber women wore. And Bamber were people historically connected to Poznań. But coming back to Bamber coif, so unmarried women, of course, they wore those cuffs. Of course, because married ones wore caps. The Bamber coif was a very adorned, richly decorated headgear sponsored by the bride's father. The wealthier the father, the richer the coif was. And when thinking about Bambers and Poznań in general, the first thing that comes to one's mind is the Bamber coif as the most characteristic element of dressing. And when Monika was asked about telling how it happened that, she and her mother started making those Bamber coifs, the whole story unfolded. And the story is related to the fact that her mother is a milliner by profession, and her great-grandmother was a Bamber and rode the Bamber costume at her wedding. Her grandmother remembered that and decided that Monika will take part in the celebration of Corpus Christi wearing the Bamber costume, and so she was the only girl wearing the costume. Of course, there were no Bamber costumes available to the public back then, so her grandmother based it on her memory, and after consulting it with Mrs. Janina Paradowska, they made this coif that you can see on those pictures connected to our interview. Just a short disclaimer, I also introduce you to take a look at those articles and the webpage where we have all those pictures. It's really hard to describe them here in the audio version. Coming back to the story, when Monika said that looking at it today, one can see some inaccuracies, but the coif evolved and they were different every time. For example, they were custom made for the women who were supposed to wear them. If the woman was short, if the woman was short, the coif was higher because the first ones were 20 centimeters high. It's around 8 inches. The next part of the story is that, Monika was noticed by Danuta Muszyńska-Zamorska, who reached out to her family and asked her if she could paint her. And that's how she got her painting and a series of postcards as the girl in the Bamber costume. And about making those Bamber coifs, where to start? Well, as Monika admitted in this interview, it's extremely labor intensive. It requires great patience and determination. And there are a few basic rules that are still valid today and haven't actually changed over the years. There should be 5 flowers. Why 5? As the Bambers used to say, 1 is not enough, 3 is average, 6 is too much, and 5 is just right. Hence the 5 flowers. Above the forehead, there is a red border, and there's a white lace fixed to it. Often white flowers were also used, mainly lilies of the valley and forget-me-nots. Obviously, this has changed with time, because today these flowers are completely different. On the back of the coif, there were ribbons called wiatrówki. You could translate it into wind catchers, maybe, because they were fluttering on the wind and were to attract the attention of the bachelors. Of course, the arrangement of these wind catchers also depended on the parish because, for example, the parish in Jeżyce had overlapping wind catchers, as I have in my coif, as Monika mentioned. The second coif made by her mother had tied ribbons. So as you see, those coifs differed among each other. What Karolina also added in this interview, that in Poznań, it was the parish priests who made sure that the Bamber coif won't disappear and kind of, insisted that the girls that were pouring flowers wore the costumes and then the coif looked differently in each parish. So we could also thank to them for keeping this tradition alive. There was a lot of freedom in design, but the overlapping idea behind it was to promote wearing it during those festivals, like festivities. So let's go back to those 5 flowers. The only thing that it was said that was the coif is all in flowers, but only 5 of them are red. So there are lots and lots of flowers, but only 5 of them are red. Beads were used as well, and sometimes feathers for decorating it. For example, Monika mentioned that she has made one coif for a theater production, and it was decorated pretty fancily because it was a very bold production about a man dressed as a Bamber girl wearing a coif and picked up, spilled pyry. Pyry, that's how people call potatoes in Poznań. Just this short disclaimer. The coif had to be fixed very well so as not to fall off of the head, and it was made in a very modern and spectacular way. It had feathers and beads and seconds, so it was not historical. But there was this, reinterpretation of modern times from this historical costume element. And how about this base of a coif? What is it made on? What's the coif made on? Well, Monika mentioned that they use a small cap for a base, and then they attach a kind of superstructured layers of artificial flowers. For one coif, they use around 350 flowers. Yeah, that's right, 350 flowers. She counted that once. In the back, there are ribbons and 2 or 3 big bows. Originally, they were embroidered with gold, silver, or silk threads, but now it's a dying profession. So Monika said that it's replaced by regularly embroidered ribbons. This coif is slender, rounded at the top. Karolina also asked about, tying this coif, because she said, it could fall off, right? And Monika quickly added that it was tied in the back with ribbons. That's why the Bambers should tie their hair in a knot, because that also stabilizes the coif so it wouldn't fall. And how long does it take to make such a coif? Monika admitted it depends on how detailed it has to be. Sometimes it takes a whole day, and sometimes a few days. There were situations where she admitted they made, for example, 12 coifs for the Bamber Museum, and they had to be done super fast. So her hands hurt like hell, but she did it anyway to meet the deadline. But generally, as she admitted, it takes around 3 days minimum to make it perfect. So what if somebody wanted to make such a coif and all its elements, and was looking for sources and instructions on how to make such a thing? Where would they have to look? Well, Monika said she thinks that this will be problematic because it is difficult to find flowers that will at least slightly resemble these old flowers. She admitted she's in a good position because she had many hours of consultations with the head of the Bamber Museum and the keeper of the coifs, and they actually told her which flowers were suitable and which looked too modern. So she knows which ones to choose. But it's not a common knowledge, as you may assume. And the ribbons, were they once cotton? So when it comes to ribbons, the choice was free, but they were always cut in an inverted V shape to discourage frying. And does the coif arouse interest? Well, Monika admitted that it arouses huge interest because it's something else and very Bamber. Wherever she appears in the Bamber costumes, she just draws attention. She thinks it's safe to say that from all our folk costumes, the Bamber one draws the most attention, thanks to this coif, because it's so different. There were also caps. Married women used to wear caps, and there were also golden caps worn on special occasions by ladies, for example, when their son or daughter was getting married. The golden cap was usually borrowed from another lady, so the golden cap was passed on. Okay, but coming back to the coif, how does the base of the coif look like and how it is made? Monika said that once there was this usage of cardboard, wires, everything that was good for keeping it up and straight. And now, because times have changed and the coifs are worn by young women and we are not used to wearing hats in general, often we replace the wires with something else, so the whole thing isn't so heavy. And does consequently this coif require a straight pose, you might ask? Well, Monika said, of course. So it won't, fall down. But on the other hand, it is fixed well and it could survive even a Bamber wedding. So, dancing in a coif must be challenging, as you may assume. But Monika said that she remembers when she was a little girl, and only the moment of putting it on was a little weird. But then it didn't feel weird at all. You just got used to wearing that. And when Monika said, getting back to her childhood, the story with Muszyńska-Zamorska painting developed into friendship between her and, her grandmother, this painter and Monika's grandmother. So they kept in touch through the years, and she, Monika, meaning Monika, she ended up on 2 other paintings. So the second one was put on the postcard, and the third one was a kind of a fantasy basing on her first communion photo. And obviously those postcards have to be added to our visuals for the project. So Monika admitted she thinks that Bambers were pioneers of fashion because the coifs evolved and they kept up with these trends, and they kind of weren't afraid of the changes in the time. They were very modern for their time, meaning Bambers, right? And how about the bride? Did she wear it, the coif during the wedding until, oczepiny? That's this capping ceremony at midnight. Well, Monika said the bride wore it until the capping ceremony, exactly, and then she put on a cap as a symbol of showing that she's a married woman now. The cuff was a kind of lure for bachelors and a kind of hello, I'm right here, pick me up sign, right? So how about, wearing those cuffs? Women wore them to the church on Sundays, but only on special occasions. And, how about practical side of wearing it? They were around 2-3 kilograms, so it's like 4-7 pounds, right? And the ones in the olden days, twice as much, because they were bigger, and traditional cuffs should be, around 20-21 centimeters high, so it's around 8 inches. So it seems that cuffs fit only, like one girl, because it's fitted with cardboard. But that's just a theory. As Monika admitted, because of the ribbons in the back, one could regulate them by, few centimeters. So the girls at the museum, there is like this idea that cuffs could be exchanged. So even if in the museum there is this exchange of cuffs, because there's no point making them in every single size when a person grows. And are there any people nowadays who would like to learn how to make the Bamber cuffs? Well, Monika admitted that she thinks that many people would be interested in that, but few dare to wear them. She spoke to the head of the museum, and not many girls dare to wear a cuff because they would have to endure a few hours in the cuff and the whole costume, which has a lot of layers and is not comfortable. And today, we are not used to, we are just like used to running in jeans and ponytails rather than traditional clothes. And how many of those skirts there were in this, Bamber costume? To be honest, even Monika said she doesn't remember. You would have to ask the head of the museum, but she thought there were 3 skirts and there were like 5 coral necklaces or something like that. So yeah, that's quite a lot, right? And how about those characteristic elements? So there were like coral necklaces, embroidered aprons. Monika also added that her costume had 2 basic elements, the skirt and the blouse. Yellow, blue, green, and red were the dominant colors. There was also a small purse, which was the Bamber's showpiece. And it was embroidered, and the Bambers tried to make it as decorative as possible. So they also had handkerchiefs and gloves. So as you see, the reflection of those times, the rich ornamentation, and the Bamber cuff, there's something to be taken into consideration when talking about this traditional regional characteristic to Poznań region ornaments. And Karolina, who interviewed Monika, she said she has this reflection that if nobody makes cuffs now, then at some point, if we want to make them, we will have to turn to museums and their exhibits to be able to recreate them. And Monika said that is why she keeps this tradition in her family. Her grandmother made cuffs, then her mother, and now she makes them. And she knows how to make them. And that's how the tradition is preserved. I hope that I kind of got you curious about this Bamber coif. If you just want to take a look how it looks, I'll invite you to the webpage dedicated to this project. And surely I invite you to another episode. So see you in another one.